welcome back to Soul Mechanics. So, this is going to be a brief update patch for the virtual reality segment on the sidetrack scores. There are a few things that I had missed there. Thank you, shout out to Dre from Spirit Light Body channel for reminding me. Though I'm not sure he knew he was doing that, but that was in fact why you showed up. I'd like to say I'm highly appreciative of everybody that is in fact a fan of the channel, so to speak. Everybody that's commenting, everybody that's engaging, anybody that might be sharing videos or promoting the channel in any way, thank you so fucking much. Keep it up, man. This is a fight. Like, people, especially with me having this stated that I'm pro-population control, I mean, honestly, it seems like a bad idea, but for the most part, it only really seems like a bad idea because that's how it's been presented to us. It's kind of like communism. People have misused communism, turned it into something shitty, attached aspects to the value of it that make it seem negative, that make it seem deplorable even. And then of course America's got this anti-communist because we were enemies of Russia and Russian politics. You know, we have this anti-communism kick, but communism in and of itself really isn't a terrible idea. It doesn't seem to be hugely effective in and of itself. It needs some tweaking, of course, just as does democracy. I mean, bear in mind, democracy put us where we are, which is not in a perfect state of affairs by any measure. All of these things need a little tweaking. Honestly, personally, I say we should do away with the political system in its entirety and just start brainstorming on how we can make use of what we've learned as a species to come up with a solid plan that doesn't have sects of people feuding with each other over their political references. I mean, and most of the people are going to be anti-Republican or anti-Democrat, pro-Dem, pro-Republic, and anti the other side aren't even really what they think they are, and don't believe in it at all. Most of them don't even know what it is. I know a fair bit now. I've been schooled on it for the most part by our operator and our political reps, but really, I mean, it seems, honestly, the very concept of it, the very idea of this, you know, Republican system and Democratic system, it's like, I'm not seeing where the lines are drawn or how it makes sense at all to have these things in play. It doesn't matter, it's not my field. But what I am saying is that we can do better, you know, like, as I was saying with the population control thing. Population is heavily associated to communism, in fact, and communism is associated to dictatorship, which is not what it is at all. You know, communism is community-oriented. It's communism, and that's what the word means. That's what it's meant to indicate, but it doesn't anymore. The word communism indicates something evil and tyrannical, at least from an American perspective, because propaganda has effectively programmed us to think that way, and that's in our brains. Even I, you know, being fully aware of it, being a spotter and being fully aware of the actual values and aspects in play, initially I still get that hint. My brain still thinks, I hear the word communism and there's something wrong with that. Why? Anyways, so population control is a big one that a lot of people are going to be completely against, especially because it insinuates or implies that, you know, it's almost like an anti-human sentiment. But I mean, these are debates that we can't really afford to get into yet. We can't go that far out on the limb. I will state, though, that, I mean, while I understand the pros and the cons of the idea as it stands, I am personally pro some measure of population control, not like taking people in the fields and shooting them, but some measure of population control as a means to plan for a future wherein we do not ruin the fucking planet, because that's where we're headed, and it matters. We are one with the planet. All things that live on this planet are a part of that organism, like my initial analogy with a cell. If you break open a cell and you see little pieces moving in it, you don't think that those pieces are somehow separate from the cell, do you? No, because they are not. And that's how we are with this planet. No difference. It's macrocosmic, microcosmic, as above, so below. Anyways, so to give the update as quick as I can, we have various factors in play that are, in fact, huge proponents of the simulation theory. For example, the holographic universe hypothesis, or what's pretty much accepted, really, is, I mean, the universe is holographic. The material that makes up the universe is holographic, as I stated so very, very long ago in probably my first 3 or 4 videos, maybe the second video. Time being the material of life, the substance of reality, is in fact a holographic material. And the changing of time, for example, the passing of time, it's a matter of perspective. That's going to be that fourth dimension, is perspective. So when you look at something, when you view something from a different perspective, the image alters, but the substance remains the same. It's holographic in nature, whilst at the same time, every little piece of that substance contains the information of the entirety of the structure. So, if you break off a little cell, break off a piece of DNA, for example, that DNA is going to, if you can unlock it and read the code, it's going to tell you everything about the human entity from start to finish. Throughout the entirety of our evolution, it's going to tell you everything about how we came to be, what we are, and where we're going, in fact. The programming is already there, biologically speaking. And if you break off a cell, not a cell, but like an atom or a particle, and we don't have the means yet to do this. We might. I mean, from what I know, we don't. We didn't even then when I saw it the first time. Never mind. We should not have the technology yet to go ahead and view this as I'm suggesting, but were you to take a particle and have what is necessary to go ahead and, blow it up to a proportional size that you're able to view the workings of it, it's going to have the workings of the cosmos in it. It's going to be, you break off one little piece of a holographic image and shine a light through it, it's going to give you the whole image. That's how a hologram works. So that is one of the biggest proponents, as it stands, of the simulation theory, is that the universe is pretty much known for certain to be holographic in nature as it stands. But that's only a proponent because we think of holograms as being simulated. Like, people, again, it's an instance of viewing things backwards. People think that because we create games, we create simulations, and that the properties of the simulation is so similar to the properties of our physical reality, of physics, that somehow that means that physics is based on the simulation. You see what I'm saying? That's the idea we get when we see the workings of a computer program, and we look at it and we see how very similar, if not identical, to the workings of the human entity and of our universe, in fact, of our physics and of our psychology. We see how very similar these workings are between the program and psychology, between the simulation itself and our physics. We see how very similar they are, and somehow that convinces us that our reality must be based on the simulation that we created. We created it. So yeah, it's based on our world, not the other way around. This is like, I think this is a trick, like, either way it's a trick, but either somebody is like deliberately trying to convince people to think that way, or this is again an instance of just making a huge mistake and viewing everything backwards. because I mean it's really a stupid mistake to make, honestly, to be thinking that, say, you play a video game. This is a big one where we play video games and we see that video games are pretty much, they're like pre-rendered circumstances that are placed in the game, where when you're playing the game and you view something, it comes into play, but the rest of the map is empty. There's nothing else in play until you look at it, and that's so similar to what we know of how quantum mechanics was telling us the world operates, that when the observer views something, the particles in play arrange themselves and present themselves to the observer on the spot, that because the way that game works is so similar to the way that this works, that this must be the same thing as that. But no, that's the same thing as this, because that's how we designed it. So again, it's entirely possible. Sure, somebody could have designed this world, and that's why it could be the way it is because, you know, that's what I guess we're learning to some extent, that it's possible, because that's how we design these games, that it's so similar to reality that, you know, maybe we're a game created by somebody else. Sure, that's a potentiality, but thinking that we must be a game because of the similarities doesn't add up. That doesn't play, because the game only operates the way it does because we made it do that. See? So it's like a hallucination. It's seriously, it's like a sleight of mind hallucination that's making us think that way. And there's so many considerations to be brought up as regards that, like perhaps it's an escapist mentality, perhaps we're trying to redefine reality to suit modern interests, perhaps. I mean, honestly, the escapist mentality is going to be the biggest thing I've got on mind, is that we're trying to, it could very well be that we're very, very sternly trying to escape the reality that's presented by religion, which is the most heavily insinuated, at least, if not even accepted, concept of reality around the world, because it was so heavily enforced upon the world. It was, again, religion took the world hostage by force and brainwashed everybody into thinking, at the very least, anybody in the world is somehow, unless you're like an isolated community away from the rest of modern society, modern civilization, and you've never been influenced, everyone that has been touched in any way, any community, any civilization in the world that's been touched in any way by modern religion, particularly Christianity, has that influence in play. And regardless of whether you accept it or not, regardless of how ridiculous you might see it as being, it's affecting you. It's in your brain, and it is affecting you. And honestly, even if there is an isolated tribe somewhere, which of course there are a bunch of isolated tribes that haven't been touched by modern civilization, they're all over the place, but they're still going to have that value in play. They just don't know it. It hasn't been triggered. It hasn't, the primers in play have not been cued by anybody presenting that to them, but those primers are in play in the brain, because we're all sharing a collective consciousness, and we know this to be the case because we've done scientific studies that show that in any given community, most especially like the 100 monkeys theory, wherein they give a monkey a potato and they teach a monkey to wash the potato in the stream, and the monkey washes the potato in the stream, and then after a little while, all of a sudden, all of the monkeys, even monkeys that haven't been anywhere near that monkey, are washing their potatoes in the stream because the idea is shared. Now, I'm pretty sure that there are some people who think they have debunked that, and maybe they have, who knows. Maybe that experiment didn't work out, but it's a good example nonetheless, because we do know that ideas that we have as people tend to pop up in clusters. When somebody has an idea, people all over the world have the same idea around about the same time. This is why we see so many instances of the same movie popping up. There's always going to be at least 2 movies made that are almost identical to each other, usually one that takes a cheaper B-rank kind of comedic flip, and one that's more serious and taken seriously and done with a higher budget. But you're always going to see that pair, at least, if not, like I said, clusters of them popping up all over the place. The same thing happens with experiments. The same thing happens with inspirations. The same thing happens with generally speaking, it's going to be epiphany. And we learned this from another study that I did that I haven't gotten around to making a video about yet, the 999 thing, the nonary games. That's going to be a big one. Don't let me forget that, peeps. But we'll get to that. That'll actually have to be a part of this one. We'll discuss synchronicity and the happenings of synchronicity. I'd like to make one note. That's about all that I really have to say for this one, for right now, for this update patch. But I should like to note an instance of synchronicity that happened just yesterday, in fact, is that somebody got beat to death down the street. 3 people popped out of a car. Now, we're thinking it could very well have been the same 3 people that jumped me, because, I mean, these are the only people in this neighborhood that would even think to do something that shitty. Like, we look out for each other here. Everybody on this fucking street, everybody on this block, everybody in this area knows me and is looking out for me. And I'm looking out for them. We watch each other's backs. We care about each other. Except for these 3 fucking assholes who are going around robbing people and hurting people. They robbed a store down on 102. And anyway, 3 guys popped out of a car and beat this dude to death. Now, we're talking about that. And then I had to walk home in the middle of the night from here the other night. And as I did, I'm getting this intuition in my head. Like, kind of an intuition. I'm thinking, well, something like that could happen to me, and I'm kind of scared about it. I'm thinking, this sucks, you know, I don't want that to happen, because I have people counting on me now, you know, I have people that care about me all over the place now, and it wouldn't be cool for me to do that to them, so suddenly I give a shit about myself, and I'm worried that something might happen to me. But then I say to myself, well, if this was an actual intuition, it'd be popping up, you know, like I'd really be thinking it, I'd really be feeling it. I wouldn't just, I'm thinking, I'm just thinking it because we were talking about it. It's not an actual intuition. If it were an intuition, I'd get some kind of an alarm. I actually thought that specifically. I'd get some kind of an alarm. And the moment I thought that, my phone lit up with notifications, just like a cluster of notifications all of a sudden. And so I said to myself, well, there it is. That's my intuition presenting in the world. It's telling me that something's up. And wouldn't you know it, 1 fucking street later, I'm walking down, somebody speeds up and starts screaming at me out of the car saying they're going to fucking come get me. They said, I'm going to get you, motherfucker. And then they speed around the corner and they go and turn around and come back. But I had already vanished by the time they got back. Fucking ain't going to get me, man. Shit. I'm one of the first things I trained in was ninjutsu. You ain't gonna find me if I don't want you to. Anyways, that's it for this clip. Thank you all for watching. I am sorry if I pissed anybody off with the population control. Cheeks and I will clear that up in our next video on Saturday. Until then, just hang in there, guys. I'm not implying that we should kill you and your family. Basically, I'm not pro killing people or like, you know, just, that's not what I'm saying. Anyway, love you guys. Thank you all for watching. Kilo Salai, Terviuni Ciari. Namaste.